What's happening, good people? Welcome to the channel. I'm Wes, aka Mr. Budget Watch, and today we are reviewing the Bliger, not Tiffany Blue, OP Homage. Now, the reason why this is not Tiffany Blue, I'll actually pop a picture of the proper Tiffany Blue. You can see the shades and the hue is slightly different on this one. So even though it's tried to emulate Tiffany Blue, it's not quite achieved it. So this one was kindly provided by Bliger to review. It doesn't have to go back to them, but as you guys know by now, that doesn't really impact my opinion, and you're going to get an honest review. So their store will be linked down in the description if you want to check it out. So let's start off with the sizes and specs, and then we're going to go over everything I like and some things that I don't like too. So this one is 40mm in diameter. We have 42.5 including the crown, 20mm lug width, 11.9mm thick, 47.9 lug to lug. The case is 316L stainless steel, as is the bracelet. We have only 30 meters of water resistance, which is my first gripe. Should have been 50, 100 would have been even better, but it definitely should have been 50 meters and not 30. 140 grams sized up for me and my 6-inch wrist. So taking a look at the watch itself, you can see we've got a really quite thick polished bezel. So you can just see it right there. It's got a nice slope and angle to it. You know, the polishing is done to a pretty good standard. You guys know by now, polishing is not my preferred finish, which is one of my big gripes about this watch, or the polishing on it. But you know, that's just me. So moving on quickly, you can see we have a plain brushed rehaut, and then moving in we've got your minute track, and then we've got actually these little squares denoting every marker, and then we've got applied batons everywhere apart from at the 12 o'clock where we get a triangle. So they are applied and loom filled. They have a really nice silver high polished border just to give it a nice little bit of contrast against the dial. Underneath the 12 o'clock we have Bliger printed. The printing is decent. It's not the best or highest quality I've ever seen, but it's pretty nice. And above this 6 o'clock we have automatic, and that is pretty much it on the dial. Moving on to the handset, you can see they are slightly beveled, high polish, and they're just very simple sort of stick-like style. Nothing too fancy or anything like that, but they're nicely done. Can't really complain. They are loom filled as well. The second handing is just a very slender one, all high polish. You can just see they play with the light really nicely. But yeah, overall it's pretty nice, pretty clean, and quite well done. Moving on to that blue dial, it's just a matte blue dial. Again, it isn't Tiffany Blue like I said in the introduction. They got the shade a little bit wrong, but I still do really like this shade of blue. I think it's very nice. Obviously, it's not as nice as Tiffany Blue in my opinion, but I think it's a really nice shade of blue. And I love how it works with the high polish and of course the white loom. I think it's a really nice combination. Of course, if you're not a fan of this blue, they do a lot of different other colours as well, which you can see at the link in the description. So if you're not a fan of this one, there's probably going to be one that suits you a little bit better. So moving on to the side, you can see it is all high polish, tiny bit of downturn to those lugs, but it is a little bit uninteresting to be fair. But then again, it's just the style of the watch. Unsigned crown, I've left that blue plastic on, but yeah, it's unsigned, high polish, nothing really to write home about. High polish lugs, which is another big gripe, should have been brushed to match the bracelet. I just think it's too much of a contrast and it just doesn't work for me. Definitely should have gone that little extra step and brushed the lugs. I think it would have made for a much more cohesive look. So if you look at it, you can just see, you know, there is a big difference between the finishes, and for me it's just a little bit off-putting. And you'll also see that there is some scratches on the lugs as well, and that's just one of the downsides of high polish. It's easy to tarnish, but not as easy to fix as a brushed surface, which is why I prefer brushing. It looks a little bit nicer, and it's more hard wearing and durable than a high polish finish. But you know, that's just my personal preference. So now guys, let's talk about the bracelet. So taper wise, we start off at 20, we go all the way down to 15.8 just above the clasp, and then back up to around 18 at the clasp. So starting off with the finishing, and it is all brushed, which is my preferred style. Oyster style, really nice. High polish at the sides, screw links, solid end links, pretty nice. Good articulation in between the links, so it's really nice and flexible. Decent quality finishing, not the best I've ever seen. There is a few scratches from use obviously, but that can be fixed quite easily. Yeah, so a couple of little sharp edges just on the underside as well, where it's not quite being finished to a good standard. But, you know, for the price point, it can't cover all the bases. And this is one where it's just slightly fell down a little bit. To the clasp, again, another little bit of an issue. Here, right here, it's very, very difficult to actually get your finger in to get it out. You've got to have some fingernails because the gap there is just not big enough. You can see the dent there where you're supposed to get your finger. It's just not quite deep enough. But we do have the Rolex style fold over, and you know, it's really nice and secure. Not the easiest to use. And again, you know, we've got that Rolex style which is like the half milled. One other great thing about this bracelet though is the proper working glide lock. So you just have to pop it out and then you hear an audible click, and then you can see it slides up and down freely. It's not the smoothest, I will say, but it's actually got glide lock and it works. Really surprising for a watch at this price point when some of the more expensive Homage watches can't have glide lock on their bracelets. So I don't know why they can't do it if Bliger can. So now we're going to talk about comfort. So let's pop it on wrist and show you what it wears like. And here it is on my wrist. So we've got that 47.9 lug to lug, which is just about all right for my wrist. It's I definitely prefer 48 and under for my slim wrist. But this one, you know, just does about fit. It lines up with the bottom and the top just about right. And you know what? It's a pretty comfortable little watch. The profile is a little bit of flax. We don't get any downturn to those lugs really. Would have been nice if the case was a little bit curvier just so it hugged a little bit better. But also get a little bit of an awkward gap just at this side. But then again, my wrist is a really awkward and unusual shape. Bracelet, you know, again, we've got good flow, good articulation. And of course, that glide lock really does help get a nice snug fit. One other problem I noted with this bracelet as well is one of the screw pins got stuck, so I've had to use the hot water trick just to soften it up, and it has actually come out. So if yours does that, put it in some hot water, not boiling water, just really hot water, leave it to soak for about 20 or so minutes, and it should loosen it up and should come out. So that's just a little tip for you there, and did work for this one, so I could size it up properly. But yeah, it's not the most comfortable watch, I'm not going to lie. I think the ergonomics of this case style are a little bit off for me personally. Might be different for you guys, but yeah, it's not the most comfortable watch I've ever experienced. Yeah, it's wearable and it's nice, but yeah, it's not the most comfortable for me. I think it's just because of the flat case. And of course, these clasps, these oversized clasps, they're just too big for my slim wrist. If you've got a slightly thicker wrist than me, which most people do, then it's not as big a problem. But for me, it's just not the nicest wear of any watch that I've covered. Unfortunately, it's just the style of the bracelet and the style of the watch don't really play well together for me in particular. Right guys, so now we're going to talk about the best thing about this watch, and that is the movement. The eagle-eyed among you will have probably noticed that sweep on the second hand is a little bit smoother than a regular watch, and that is because it's using a high beat movement, more specifically the PT5000, which is insane to get a PT5000 in a watch at this price point. So if you don't know this PT specs, it's 28,800 beats per hour, which is that high beat, 25 joules, we have hacking, we have auto and hand winding, negative to plus 12 seconds per day these are at, which I think is very, very impressive and way better than some other rivals. So yeah, 38 hour power reserve as well. This watch is also available with an NH35, a Miyota 8215 or a Mingzhu 2813, all of which are a little bit cheaper than the PT. But if you can spring for the PT, that is the one I would go for, because you get that beautiful sweep. It's really robust, really reliable. Probably not as reliable as an NH35. So if you want that real long-term, you know, ability to last. The NH35 is the way to go. So I've also noted that the PT is a little bit harder to get repaired and maintained because parts aren't as widely available as the NH35. So take that into consideration as well. But the movement is absolutely fantastic. You can see it sweeping away there, no issues whatsoever. So this is your crown. So you just give it a little unscrew because it is screw down. Really small and compact 6.8mm crown. So it's really nice, got some good grip on it. I think the aesthetic works really well with the watch. Good amount of grip thanks to this knurled edge as well. So pulling it out thingy, there's a ghost date position unfortunately because this is a date watch, a date movement. But winding very, very nice and smooth. You can just see how smooth it is. We don't get any second hand wobble either. And then obviously you just set your time wherever you want it, push it back in and then screw it into place. And it's a very, very simple and easy to use watch. Yes, it would have been nice if you know, the movement didn't have you know, the day date complication, whatever it has. So you don't have a ghost date position. But again, you know, it's easy to pull the crown out all in one anyway, so it's not really a deal breaking issue in my opinion. So moving on to the price and verdict, this is this particular one is at £88 at the time of filming this review, but prices do tend to fluctuate. I've seen these going upwards of like £90, but I still think with a PT movement it's great. One thing I would like if you know, Bliger do another version of this, definitely get rid of the high polished lugs and put some brushing on. I think it would just I think it would look so much nicer in my opinion and create a more cohesive look. But other than that, there's small complaints with the bracelet, the finishing. It's not my preferred choice, but overall, I mean, I think it's a pretty good package. Yeah, it's probably not the best quality watch out there at this price point. But then you've got to factor in the glide lock, which you don't get at this price point, and the PT, which is rare at this price point. So it's definitely a mixed bag. So can you live with the quirks? If you can, then I think the price point is very, very good, especially under £100 for this watch. Yes, it's not perfect, but I still think it's pretty good value if you can live with the minor issues. Of course, if you don't like the bracelet, you could always actually get a better bracelet and just put the glide lock clasp on a different Oyster bracelet, and that would probably work equally as well, or even better in my opinion. But anyway, still a good value watch, not the best out there, but you know, it's definitely a good one. Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, like the video if you enjoyed it, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any uploads, and of course follow me on social media at Mr. Budget Watch. Thanks again, I'll see you soon.